Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be a book tag. So I'm going to be doing the philosophy of reading book tag, or the book philosophy tag, I think is actually what it's called. I saw Eric at Break Even Books. I will link his channel and video down below. I saw that he did this tag. I thought it was interesting, and I would like to hear everyone's thoughts on this. I don't think I'm going to tag anyone, but if you would like to do this tag, I would love to hear your responses, or if you just want to leave them in the comments down below. But it's kind of long, so without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it. And the first question is, what is more important? A good character, a good plot, or a good message? And for me, I'm going to go ahead and say plot, just because I am not a character-driven reader. I don't necessarily have to love the characters. Like, I would like them to have some sort of character arc, but to me it's more important that that is like integrated into the plot. And if the plot is not that interesting, it's very rare that I will like a plotless book. So for that reason, I'm going to say plot. Question 2 is, should people read books that contain ideas or opinions that they disagree with? And I think yes. I think if you are reading to like expand your worldview, which in a way, I feel like everyone sort of should be. I think it's important to read things that aren't just what you already know and believe, just because otherwise you're sort of like limiting yourself and putting yourself in an echo chamber. Question 3 is, as tech advances, what do you think will be the role of books? So I personally, I don't know about like paper books being around forever. They've been around a really long time, so potentially I think they could be around for a lot longer. Like, I don't think paper books are going to stop being published in my lifetime. That's not to say they will always be published, but I think books in some form will always be around, because like even before we had written language, people would orally tell stories. And if you think about it, what books are really are stories. And I don't think the like innate human desire to tell a story is ever going away. I think that books in their like true form as like stories being told by people, I think that will always exist. And there will always be a place for that in society. Question 4 is, how important are summaries, reviews, and art in you choosing a book? So for me, I of course want to read books that I think I'll enjoy. I definitely am guilty of cover buying. I know that like you can't judge a book by its cover or whatever, but if a book has a beautiful cover, I'm more likely to want to purchase that book because it'll look nice on my shelves. And also because I just think there's something about the name of a book and the cover of a book that is like my first impression and really draws me in, especially because I don't really like to read summaries of books. For reviews, I don't really read Goodreads reviews before I read a book. If I see something on Instagram or YouTube of someone like talking about a book that they've read or mentioning what something is about, I'm more likely to want to read a book based on that. But no, I don't really look at reviews. I read half of the inside cover usually if I want to know what a book is about, but I'm not like that pressed to know all sorts of details because I feel like sometimes summaries spoil things. So I am kind of a go into it blind person. I definitely like won't not read a book because I don't like the cover, but even if I've never heard of a book before, if I hear a title that sounds really intriguing and see a cover that looks really beautiful, I'm probably going to pick it up. Question 5 is, should one ever skim or skim read a book? I think sure. So here's the thing. I know that there's like a big push behind like you should just DNF things you're not enjoying, and I agree with that, but I am a nosy bitch and I want to know what happens. So I have been known to like skim through parts of books that I'm not that interested in to get to the whole plot. And this is especially true if there's like a big mystery to be revealed, but I don't really care about a certain part of a book. I will skim read it. I don't know if you necessarily like should, and I know people would tell me like you should just DNF something if you're not enjoying it, and I in theory agree with that philosophy, but in practice I don't really DNF things very often. I want to know what's going to happen. I want to read just in case it gets better. I don't want to look up spoilers for it and then be like, oh shit, I wish I'd read that, even though I can't think of a single time that has happened. So I just want to know what's going on. I don't have a problem with people skimming things. I think you read however you want to read. Question 6, should reading always be enjoyable? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to take a bold stance here and say if it's not fun, why are you doing it? My thinking is if you are not having a good time reading something, don't read it. I know that there's this push for people to read, like, I think we're going to get into it in a bit, but like read classics or read nonfiction. I just think if it's not fun, why are you forcing yourself to do something that you don't have to do that isn't enjoyable for you? Doesn't make sense to me. Does not compute in this brain. 7, here we go. Is it important to be well read? No. I think you should read what you like to read. And if you like to read like smut and erotica and that's it, good for you. I think that's what you should read. If you like to read like fantasy and YA fantasy and that's it, read YA fantasy. Go for it all day long. If you like to read a lot of different things, but you struggle with like the way classics are written, don't force yourself to read something you're not gonna like. There are certain classics that I like want to read, not because I want to be well read, but because I've heard people talk about them and I have an interest in being able to participate in those conversations. And so I think if you look at it from that viewpoint, then maybe you want to read more classics, maybe you want to read something else, but I just don't think it's important to be well read for the sake of being well read, if that makes sense. Question 8, what is your book buying process? My book buying process is essentially I keep a list of all the books that are on my TBR that I don't own, and I try to stick to that list because I don't want to be adding a bunch of books to my TBR that I don't need to add to my TBR. If I'm going to a physical store, I will probably skim through most sections and look for titles that stick out to me, but I really will just go like row by row. I'm very, very into that. But also I try not to buy a ton of books. I usually set a limit, either a dollar amount limit or a number limit before I go into the store, just so that I'm like staying accountable for that. What is your reading process? I don't really know what this means. I play a TBR game to pick what books I'm gonna read for the month, and then I typically read my TBR. When I run out of TBR books, I guess I can answer this a little more in depth. I try to always have a physical book, an ebook, and an audiobook going at once. They can be like a physical copy, an e-copy, and an audio copy of the same book if I'm just reading one book, but usually I try to have a couple of different books going at once because I love to listen to audiobooks, and that's the way I listen to things the fastest or read things the fastest. So typically, if I run out of an audiobook, I will try to find other books on my TBR that are audiobooks, but if there are none available from my library, then I will add books from my TBR that do have audiobooks at my library and listen that way. That's how I read so much. People ask me all the time how I read so much. It's because I'm always listening to an audiobook. Pretty much like constantly. If you see me with headphones in, it's an audiobook. That's what I'm doing. If you see me driving, I'm probably listening to an audiobook. That's what I'm doing. Question 10 is how do you use what you read? And I don't really know what this question means. I pretty much read for enjoyment, which I think I pointed out. So like, I do reference things that I've read sometimes, especially if it's like a popular book or something. But I'm not really the type of person who's like out here using what I read in a lot of ways. I don't really know what that means. If you could download a book to your brain, would you still read it? Or would you still read? So yes, I would still read books that I enjoy reading. The only things that I would download to my brain are like what I was saying before, where if it's something that I want to know about, but I may not love the process of reading it, or like I'm in law school, I would download my textbooks into my brain like that. I would still read things that I enjoy reading because I like the process of reading. I just find it very soothing and relaxing. Question 12, what are your views on rereading a book? I'm actually in the middle of a reread right now. I don't reread a ton, but sometimes I just want to reread. I find rereading sometimes very relaxing, especially if I'm having a hard time enjoying things that I'm reading. That's why I'm rereading the book that I'm rereading right now. I am buddy reading it with a person who's reading it for the first time, which is very fun. And it's just nice to like get back into something that's like comforting. Again, reading is for fun for me. So if I want to reread something, I will. I don't reread a ton because there are so many books that I want to read. But yeah, I guess that's my philosophy on rereading. What makes a book good? Plot, good characters. Again, like I was mentioning, I like character arcs that feel complete. I don't like stagnant characters very much. I like to see that they're going through something if we're going to focus on the characters at all. There are tropes that I like, which I'm going to do an entire video on tropes that I like, but having tropes that I enjoy, a fun cast of characters is good, like unique characters. 14 is what makes a book bad. Love triangles. I hate love triangles. I can't stand it. I have had love triangles that I like don't mind as much, but truly a love triangle, it's just drives me crazy. Also like bad writing. There are some writing styles that don't jive with me, but there's like a particular type of like bad writing that I just can't handle. I don't need like a lot of purple prose. I don't even know if I like purple prose, to be honest with you, But that's the other thing I should have mentioned with good writing. I love a good atmosphere. If you write a really atmospheric book, I know that's like not everyone's favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. I want you to describe the cushions on your grandma's couch. Please and thank you. Other things that make a book bad, in my opinion, I really don't like pop culture references. I feel like it dates your book. Unless your book is historical fiction and you're trying to like ground in the time, I want contemporary to feel timeless. I don't want to be reminded that it's 2017 over and over and over and over and over again. Also, I really don't like when it's real politic references. I understand that you're like trying to make a point. I don't want to read about it. 15, how do you feel about not finishing a book? I've mentioned this already. I don't like to DNF. I wish I liked to DNF, but I want to know what's happening, so I don't really DNF that often. Should the author's personal life matter at all? This is a hard one. Short answer, yes. I think authors' personal lives do matter. But also I think once you know the context of their personal life, as long as you are like aware of what's going on, you can read a book and critically think. Just critical thinking, people. That's all we really need to do here. 17, if you could only read one genre of book for the rest of time, what would it be? What would it be? I'm gonna say speculative fiction. I love a book like, got one right here, Una Out of Order, where it's just speculative. So it's like mostly contemporary, but she sort of time travel and we don't know why that happens. The Blake Crouch books that are like sort of speculative-y, that's what I like. That's what I would read forever. Because I feel like there's enough things that you can do with that it would be interesting for me. But I read a lot of different genres and I would really rather not have to just pick one forever. Do you ever read a book without knowing anything about it? I think I've kind of touched on this. Yes, I read books not all the time that I don't know anything about, especially not now that I like do a TBR where I have to describe the book before I read it. But yeah, I will pick up a book because it looks interesting, sounds interesting, and I'll just like read it based on the title and the cover. So I'm definitely guilty of that. I do that not infrequently. 19. What author, genre, series, or culture can you not get into and why? So I never read anything by Cassandra Clare. I've never really wanted to, like the Mortal Instruments. Never got into that. I never got into Divergent. I was a Hunger Games girl. I was a Twilight girl. I was a Harry Potter girl, but I didn't like expand from those series because at the time that those books were coming out, I was getting away from wanting to read speculative fiction and I was much more interested in like the John Greens of the world. I've actually never seen the Divergent movies either. I have no idea what's going on with that. Or was there a Mortal Instruments TV show? I don't know. I don't know anything about any of that. Question 20, do you think everyone should read and why? It's going back to my main philosophy of life. I think you should give it a shot. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. I'm not here to like gatekeep reading, but I'm also not the person who's going to be like, everyone should read at least one book a month. Because like, I think if you don't enjoy it, like what's the point? I think you should just do what you enjoy. I don't think I don't think every hobby is for every person. And I don't look down on you if you don't like to read. I don't know why you're watching this video if you don't like to read. But I just think it's different strokes for different folks. Those are all the 20 questions. Again, I would love to see other people do this. So if you do it, link your video down below, or if you've already done it, link your video down below. You can just answer the questions down below if you'd like, or give comments on any of my answers, whatever you so choose. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like it if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. I'm getting really close to 400 subscribers, which is very exciting for me. And I would love to see you back here again. So you can click the bell icon if you want to be notified every time I post, but I do post videos on Sundays and Thursdays. And I will see you in my next one. Bye!